All right, gang, last video. So, study and stuff. Okay, the United Nations. Remember, happened after World War II, and it was to ensure world peace and unity to prevent any future conflict. Remember the Declaration of Human Rights? That became a big deal during this because we want to make sure there is no more future war. It was a great thought and an attempt. At times it's very successful, and at times it's not very successful. Right now, they're meeting a lot to discuss what's going on in Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, South Sudan. There's a lot going on. So it's an attempt to make sure there is world peace and that the nations get what they need in order for their civilians and citizens to be successful. Le Bastille, it is a French prison I broke out of during the French Revolution, home to weapons and debtors. This Bastille was stormed by the Third Estate, the poor of the French, and they were overthrowing the government. This was the basic beginning of the French Revolution, when the Third Estate, the poor of the United States, the poor of France, when they stormed the Bastille, when they stormed, okay, they took weapons and stuff. Vive la France, vive la Révolution. Who made up 98% of France's population? The poor, the poor. The Third Estate, right? They paid 98% of the taxes. This is like, they paid 90% of the taxes. This is ridiculous. The bourgeoisie, there is more French Revolution. The middle or upper class of the Third Estate. Oh, you can tell that I went into a French Revolution thing right here, right? Yeah. Okay, the Industrial Revolution. Do you remember the Olympic video? 2012 London Olympic opening ceremonies. It was so much fun, right? The smokestacks and the music, and I got really into it. The Industrial Revolution began in Europe, Great Britain, when new forms of energy were created or discovered. Remember, coal, and building railroads, steam power. Factories were created where goods were made in one building, not all over the place. People went to work in factories, which meant people did not make their own items at home. Goods were now mass produced, which meant that mass production of goods makes goods cheaper. More factories means more workers, more people get different jobs, they make more money, they could spend more money on stuff, new forms of energy, coal and oil, railroads are built, canals are built, machines do the work, travel is easier and cheaper. However, massive pollution. I'm okay with massive pollution, but, just letting you know. Globalization, that was a whole unit. How many pairs of shoes do you own? You remember that? The transfer of goods and ideas around the world. Remember that ship, the one that got stuck in the Suez Canal, the Ever Given? Okay, remember selling shoes, those storage containers? Yeah, right? Spreading ideas all over the world. That's globalization. Starbucks ruining globalization. Oh yeah, here we go. One pro and one con of globalization. Globalization allows goods to be cheaper because they can be made in countries where the minimum wage is lower or where there is no minimum wage. So labor is cheaper, therefore the goods are cheaper. The cost of shipping goods is also lower, which makes goods cheaper. Because those massive container ships, they can ship 10,000 shoes in one container ship. So now it's so cheap to ship this stuff. Goods and ideas also spread all over the world. Trade is so much easier. As different ideas and different religious ideas and different policies spread all over the world, that's globalization. Over 1 billion people were lifted out of poverty, right? So in places like Indonesia, China, India, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, those places now have jobs for these workers, and 1 billion people have now been lifted out of poverty because of that. Although sometimes daily life is rough, the living conditions aren't that great. Also there's more pollution and we waste more goods. And sometimes ideas leave one country and go to another and they never come back. We're so close. 4 more to go. The Great Leap Forward in China. Remember Mao Zedong? He was like, you know what? Massive collective farming, kibbutz-style farming, an industry. We're going to make China an advanced nation. We're going to make sure that everyone has the food. So what we're going to do is we're going to mass produce on a massive industrial scale. People will go back to the farms. They will farm crops. We'll become industrial yet again. People are now going to make steel in their furnaces in their backyards. We're going to see the production of machinery. It was not a good idea. It was awful, okay? Peasants didn't know how to to do all this mass farming. Peasants didn't use the correct water. They didn't use correct farming methods to do so. And also, you ever told a peasant to make steel? Give me a break. I can't even make dinner. The fact that these people are supposed to make steel, it's not going to work. 20 million people died of famine. 20 million. 20 million people died of famine. Ridiculous. One pro and one con of the one-child policy in China. Remember? In China, one of the big things was that they would try to make sure that the population would be controlled. And so there would not be overpopulation. However, you then don't always have enough people to work. Also, if a child dies in their early years, that family loses that one child. Or if there's a disaster, that family loses their child, that's it. Also, remember, in China, as parents get older, it's their children that begin to take care of them in their elder age. So if you only have one kid, that's a big burden on the families to take care of you. And you could also, a child dies, like who's going to take care of the parents? So China realized that this policy didn't work. They then allowed two children, and then 3 children. Juche. Juche is North Korea's idea of being self-reliant. They could not do this. It's just not possible. They don't have the resources to do this. They don't have the financial ability to do this. It's just not physically possible. They need other nations to do things. Okay? That's just the way it is. They need to understand that they get more than 85% of their stuff from China. You cannot be self-reliant if you get your stuff from other countries. Period. And finally, the last thing in World War II, love it, right? Absolutely love it. Soldiers rode in on horses and left in airplanes. The technology had evolved so much that when the people rode into horses on battle, they realized that this was a war that the technology would change absolutely tremendously. So the idea that now we're going to have tanks and now we're going to have airplanes and now we're going to have automatic machine guns, it was slaughter on an industrial scale. World War I. No more would we need to fight hand-to-hand combat. That's the school year. Enjoy it. Be good.